Today's a special day. It's Blueprint's fourth birthday. Today we are celebrating. We're celebrating. We've been learning why celebrating is so important as the people of God. We've been talking about it for a month, and there are so many things for us to celebrate as a family because God has been moving. God has been doing things, and there's so many individual stories. And through these 4 years, God has been so faithful. Like I look at it today as like 4 years of faithfulness, of experiencing God's hand on people and just seeing him move in ways that when we started, we didn't even see happening. And there's story after story. Today, we want to celebrate these good things because about 4 years ago, guys, this month, we had our very first service in Martin Luther King Church, or excuse me, I called it Martin Luther King Church, Martin Luther King High School, downtown Nashville, 4 years ago this month. And on that very first day, lots of people came out. And on that very first Sunday, even then, we had 2 people make decisions for Jesus on that very first day. And since we have had over 60 people locally make decisions to follow Jesus. That's an amazing thing. And then a pandemic happened, and we couldn't go there anymore. So for 9 months, if you were here then, 9 months, we couldn't meet at all. We were completely online. We kept doing grow groups. We met online. We shifted and transitioned. Then we got in a location. And then we got another location. So here we are in our 4th way of doing church in 4 years. The fact that we're even a church anymore is worth celebrating. I mean, really. That God's done this. That God continues to move. And through every move, through every unforeseen thing, he continues to be so faithful. We continue to make disciples. We continue to preach the gospel. We continue to pour into the community. We've partnered with YAPAC in multiple ways. We reach the homeless. We reach families. We resource our communities. We've continued to partner with ARC. That's our main church organization partnership. That's how we launched his Blueprint. And since we give to ARC every single week, every dollar that you give, 10% goes back into ARC. Why? Because we plant churches. So since we've launched 4 years ago, you, through your giving in our church, has had a hand in planting over 200 other churches across this nation and around the globe. That's through your giving. And God keeps doing it. And also, as you know, we talk about every so often, we have faithfully sent these very messages for 4 years now to a region of India that is 88% Muslim and Hindu, that is in dire need of hearing the gospel. And we partnered with a church and a satellite company there where we broadcast these messages every Sunday morning on television screens. And over 120,000 people now every week are hearing the goodness, the hope, the gospel of Jesus in a place that you cannot preach it. Yet they're hearing it. And to date that we know about, since we started, guys, what we could have never planned on, we did not bank on this when we said, let's plant Blueprint Church. Over 23,000 souls are now going to be in heaven because they've made a decision to follow Jesus through those telecasts. And that comes through your giving. That comes through your generosity. It's amazing. There's so many things I could tell you, statistics I could give you, but behind every one of those, there's a real person. There's a real story. There's real families that are affected. God has kept moving. God has kept doing things. And I just feel like y'all get to hear me share so often. We thought it would be really cool today to do something a little different and let you hear firsthand some of the stories of life change that's happening right here. So what we're going to do today to celebrate on our 4th birthday, and of course there's going to be a party afterwards, so stick around. We're really going to have some fun. But right now, we're going to hear from just a few people right here in our midst that are experiencing God's goodness and how he moves. So I want you to make everybody feel so loved today as they come to the stage. So Blueprint, help me welcome first to the stage, Ashley Harris.
Start with a Bible verse in Matthew 7:24 through 27. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does them, and does not do them, will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So in my early 20s, actually, no, scratch that. Growing up, I was a Christian, kind of by association, basically. I went to church because I was forced in my household. I wasn't allowed to miss. Um, but yeah, and then I guess somewhere in my early 20s, I don't know where the disconnect was or what happened, but I kind of switched to a new agey type of belief. Um, I thought I had found God. I thought it was the truth. And then almost a year ago, I would say, um, and everything was going great up until then. I found God. Everything was going good. Praise God. Um, and then almost a year ago, everything got pretty dark. Um, it's like I was catapulted almost into just like a really panicky, anxiety filled, depression filled, um, just life. It lasted for about a month. I couldn't really eat much. I had to force myself to eat maybe 1 or 2 bites of food in a day. Um, you know that feeling like when someone like scares you out of nowhere and it kind of like feel all the blood like rush to your face and your chest and everything? That's how I was like constantly for a whole month. It was crazy. Um, what else? Intrusive thoughts. Um, just everything bad you can think of, everything scary you can think of. That's what I was going through. It almost felt like, I don't know, like something was like just attached to me, like something negative, something that was like tormenting me almost. Um, yeah, and so I did everything that I thought I could do, everything that I knew how to do. I had my crystals, I had my sage, doing meditations, Reiki, tarot, angel cards, everything. Was praying to God, the universe, my angels, my guides, and nothing worked. Nothing worked at all. Try not to get emotional. Trying to be able to talk through this. Um, but through that, my cousin, she had experienced the same thing like 2 years before. Um, and she had told me about it, and I didn't really pay attention. I'm like, dang, that was scary. Um, but she knew exactly what it was. She was sending me Bible verses, sending me like videos about like proof that the Bible is real, and just a whole bunch of stuff like that. And it was just so crazy. Like I remember because I had totally scratched out Christianity, and um, I just remember like being in limbo with like, what do I do? Like, I totally don't believe this anymore. You know, like I really thought I had found God, and I'm just like, what do I do? Like, do I go back? Do I leave everything that I know and just like switch back over? It was just like it felt like there was like a tug of war, like just going on for my soul, and I just remember it was so insane. Um, but the moment I was sitting outside of my swing, and I just remember like watching this video that she sent me, and the moment that I had just like the inkling of like belief again, um, in Jesus and like Christianity, it's like it like instantaneously like just everything just like went away. Like I felt like myself again. I felt just like peace and joy and just like all that depression, anxiety, all of that just instantly went away. It was yeah, yeah, it was awesome. Um, and shortly after that, um, I was looking around for like my church home. I went to a few churches that were really good, um, but I didn't really feel like home at them uh, until I came here. Like my first day here, I was like, wow. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just that everyone was so like caring and comforting. Yeah, but my search stopped here. It was awesome. And I'm so thankful. I thank God every day for Blueprint. Um, and they say, like, we're not like family, we are family. And I really feel like that here. But yeah, so grateful, so grateful. Yeah, so grateful that I found Blueprint. I've been to a conference, I got baptized. Yeah. I'm in a grow group that I go to every week that I look forward to. So I'm super excited about where, I'm going in this church and in my faith. Um, but yeah, I'm so excited, so happy. And now I'm like the man who built his house on a rock. And yeah, and floods, rain, storms still come like here and there, but it's nothing like it was. It didn't completely crumble my house. And being a Christian, like, it doesn't mean that nothing ever happens to you or, you don't go through things. It just means that you're better equipped to handle them. You know how to handle them. Yeah. Yeah, so that's my story, and I'm super happy I'm here, and I love you all. Thank you all.
Awesome, awesome. Well, next up, we've got Mr. Corey Astfan. Come on up, Corey.
Well, if you guys haven't met me before, my name is Corey. I used to lead our youth ministry before our girls aged out and grew up, and our adults now are getting close to adulthood anyway. But my celebration for Blueprint kind of starts like 6 years ago. I met Adam and Chelsea at our old church. Just showed up as a random volunteer to help them move into their home. They were like, hey, we need big, strong guys. I'm like, yay, I can do something. So I showed up and helped them move in and met them and Sherry and Steve and helped them all get moved in. And then 2 years later, they were sharing that God was leading them here to launch Blueprint. And literally the moment Adam shared the vision with us, my heart turned in a way that I'd never felt before, and just really felt like it was one of the few times in my life since I've been a Christian that I feel like God spoke to me that wasn't just through his word and was like, go with them. And so my wife and I asked him, and he was kind of stunned, and he was like excited and nervous, and everybody's like, you want to come with us? I can't give you a job. Like, that's the launch of a church. Like, there's no safety net, but you can come. And so we sold our house and we moved here. And then I got here and I was serving and I was helping. And David and Goliath, David kills Goliath with a stone, right? Like, he does that. But that wasn't like David woke up that day, grabbed a stone because God said, grab a stone. I'm going to give you the ability to throw the stone and hit him in the head. No, earlier in that story, he says, I have pulled a lamb from the mouth of a lion. I have struck down a bear with my bare hands. Why was he doing that? He was serving his dad. He was doing a godly thing. He was serving his dad, even though he was already told he was going to be king, by the way, still serving his dad out in the fields, and shows up at that moment, ready for that moment. And I got to Blueprint, and kind of in that same way, I was helping Pastor Ron do stuff in the trailer, and I was putting bars in to hang up our curtains and everything, and try to put it all in the trailer so we could get it on and off really fast every week. And I just had this moment where I realized that stuff that had gone on my whole life, God was just sowing in for me to be here at Blueprint. And then I served in the youth ministry, and the way we ran the youth ministry was the same way the guy who discipled me ran a youth group, and he ran his small group at his house. And I was like, here I am again. God was sowing into me this whole time and pouring into me, and I had no idea that it was going to be for something like this. And so I celebrate that. And then I celebrate the fact that of those youth group, we had three, Sarah? 3 of you guys got baptized in the last 4 years? Yeah, 3. We had 3 kids get baptized in that youth ministry. That's something we're celebrating. We moved here, and I got to see the faith of my wife and my kids grow as we trusted God, and got to see my wife step into the role that she's meant for, which is running kids ministry, because she has the patience of a saint. And she is one because she's a Christian. And then I got to watch my 2 kids both give their life to Jesus over the last couple of years and get baptized. And so I got a lot to celebrate here, but it's just Jesus, guys. It's just trusting Jesus, and he's going to lead you the way through. And he told us to come to Blueprint, and here we are, and we're not leaving unless he tells us. So
thank you, Corey. Next up, we have Stephanie Blondie.
All right, guys, I'm really nervous, but I'm going to try to push through this as much as I can. So, anyways, my name is Stephanie. I go to church here. So, Pastor Adam asked me to come up here and talk about my testimony. I'm going to try to cut this down as small as I can because I went through it with Adam and it took an hour long, I think. So, promise it won't be an hour. So, I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I didn't have a relationship with God, and that led me to a life of sin. I just didn't, I knew who God was, but I just didn't apply him in my life. And of course, that led to a lot of trouble and a lot of issues in my life. When I went to college, I'm going to put it down because it's not going to help. When I went to college, I was introduced to a lot of New World ideas, and it was really hard for me to figure out what was right, what was the way to lead my life. And then there was this man who happened to be my best friend. He told me, everything you're learning from everyone else is a lie. Let me bring you to church. Let's go to Bible study, and let's learn the truth together. And I said no. No thanks. So I said, look, if I'm going to learn about God, I'm going to learn about God through myself. I'm just going to figure it out myself. And 4 years later, almost about to graduate, I run into a high school friend of mine. And when you run into someone you hadn't seen for so long, you kind of notice a difference in their life. You see something different. So I see my friend Tanisha, and I'm like, girl, I haven't seen you in so long. What's new? And she's telling me, Jesus. Because there was just so much light coming off of her. She was so much happier. There was no worries in her life. And she said it was all because of Jesus. So I still didn't understand. She's like, just come to Bible study with me. We'll figure it out. Let's just start there. So I said, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? So I go to Bible study, and in that moment, I just I'm asking all these questions, and I'm trying to understand who God is, and why is Jesus pursuing me? Because every time I have a question, he just keeps coming with me. He brings people in my life that helps me answer these questions. So there's this one question, and I asked, how is it that God is so powerful and he's so forgiving that he forgives all the sins of the world? How is it that he can take in all that burden? So after I graduated, I went to Tennessee. I still pursued that question, still trying to understand that. But I was pursuing God. But of course, it was the pandemic. All the churches were closed. It was really hard for me to find a sense of community. So I prayed about it. I said, God, help me be closer to you. And a year later, my best friend from college comes to Nashville. I move to Nashville. He proposes, and we end up getting married. And and at first I was like, oh, thank you, God, I'll never be alone. And now I'm having his child in March, so I'll never be alone. But aside from that, community was such an important thing for me, especially when it comes to, understanding who God is. And I still had a lot of questions, such as how is it that God can take on all this burden? So I truly believe that, coming here to Nashville, there was a reason. And I think that reason was God was trying to lead me to a friend of mine at Blueprint, which was Cassandra. And I'm not trying to give her too much credit because I know God works through other people and everything, and he works through me as well. But had it not been Blueprint and the community that this church has, there wouldn't be this knowledge that I have. There wouldn't be this love that I have for God. And there's people in this church that help you lead a life towards God. And there's this one scripture. I got to tell you, man, I never read the Bible, ever. And when I went to Cassandra's Grow Group, it was that was a very intense grow group. But And it's not just Cassandra, it's Cassandra and Eric's. You're not me, you're not, chopped liver, but still. There is this part, and I know it's a cliche, but it's very important for you to understand that this question of how is it that God can take on this burden? Of course, it's John 3:16. I know it's a cliche, but for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. So God loved me so much. He pursued me, and he wanted me to love him. So I just want to say thank you, God, for pursuing me, bringing people in my life to help me know you, love you, and most of all, thank you for loving me so much and bringing me a community like Blueprint. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Next up, we got a pair, Matt and Heather Herring. Come on up here to the stage.
I am so nervous. I want to start out with that. So y'all bear with me. Public speaking is not my thing. But I want to start out with Matt and I are just so on fire for Jesus right now. We are so want to scream from the top of our lungs all about Jesus and all about Blueprint. We love Blueprint. We love our church family. We are family. But it has not always been that way. I was not raised in a Christian family. In fact, I was raised by a single mom after being abandoned by my both biological father and then adopted father. And my mom had been raised in the church but had been hurt by the church and had some very opinionated views on church. So I had no real experience with a church family, and I had a lot of pain from my abandonment issues. And set that down for a minute. And through my childhood and on into adulthood, I was trying to ease that pain, and I tried many different things, and I'm not going to go into all details because I tried a lot of different things, but I ended up on some new agey stuff like Ashley. I wasn't using crystals and sage and all that, but I was more like praying to the universe, elevating the higher self, all positive all the time, that kind of stuff. And I had been there for about 5 years. And so I want to fast forward to January of this year. And Matt and I were in a really dark place. We had, over the years, I would say we had a pretty good marriage, but we had this one part of it that was pretty dark. We were kind of toxic to each other sometimes, and we would have these really awful, really terrible fights where we said some really horrible things to each other. And at this point, we had been fighting for about 2 weeks. The last 2 days, we had not really even spoke to each other. We were more like roommates. And the only thing we had said to each other, we had contemplated divorce. So this was a couple days before my birthday, and I was in a really, really sad, awful place. And I'm just going to say this. I can't tell my whole testimony because it would probably take an hour as well. So anybody that wants big details, see me after church. But I'm going to fast forward through some of it so that I'm not here all day. But because Adam only gave me like 5 minutes, which I think is unfair. But anyway, I had read someone's testimony, and she was in a very similar situation. And what they had tried everything, and what worked was this guy named Jesus. And I was really kind of terrified of this Jesus guy. But something about this testimony made me curious. So I bought a Bible, and I had it overnighted from Amazon, and I started reading it with the thought that this probably isn't going to do anything, and this feels kind of silly and weird and maybe even stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway because I have this curiosity, and I'm the kind of person that when I have curiosity, I have to go find it. I have to chase it. And I was instantly drawn in, and I'm really well read. I've read a lot of different things, but nothing drew me in like the Bible did. it was like the biggest page turner I'd ever seen. So then I got curious about other things. So I wanted to, for some reason, I had this like desire to go to church, which I'd never had before, which really scared me because the only experience with churches that I'd ever had were like legalistic churches. I'd went to a couple with some family members where they were very controlling and told people what to how to dress and what to wear and who they could associate with. And so I was terrified of church. So I decided to find an online one I could just watch at home. And so I got online and I Googled and came across Blueprint. And the title of it was The Downbeat, Rhythms of Rest. It was from January of this year. And Adam was preaching about, well, he started out talking about music, which was interesting to me because that was relevant in my life because Matt's a musician. But then he started talking about this one verse, and it is Matthew 11:28 through 30, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And I felt very burdened at that time in my life. And Adam started asking questions like, does anyone feel burdened or weary? And I was like, yeah, that's me. I feel burdened. I feel weary. Does anyone want to experience joy, peace, comfort? It's like, yeah, that's me. I want joy and I want peace and I want comfort. So after reading some more, I read the entire book of Matthew. And at 1 o'clock in the morning on my couch the next day, I was saved all by myself. Just me and Jesus. And then a couple weeks later, we knew we were moving to Nashville if we stayed together. So we came and checked out this church that I'd found online. And it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I walked through the doors and everybody started loving on me and hugging on me and smiling and saying, "We're so glad you're here." And this beautiful little girl named Amaris, this sweet 6-year-old girl, walked up to me and said, "I love your boots. They're so pretty and your hair is so pretty," and made me feel more loved than one half of my own biology ever had. And it really did feel like family when they said, "We're not like family, we are family." I think I talked too much. I'm sorry.
So my side of the story is a little bit different. I actually did grow up in church. Mom and Dad made me go to church all the time, but I never felt a connection, a personal connection with God. I'm gonna get emotional. But I had just been, once we got to Nashville, and I just have to tell you guys, her becoming a Christian is a miracle in itself. I really thought I would never see that. And when she became saved, it changed my world. But it wasn't overnight. I had been going along with my whole life, my whole adult life anyway, thinking that I'm in control. I'm the person that's supposed to make this happen. I'm not supposed to let anybody else lead me. And I don't know exactly what happened. I know that one day I was driving her to work one morning, and I got very vulnerable with her, and I told her, I said, I don't feel like I was ever saved. I don't know that I was ever actually saved. And she says, "Well, we can do that right now. We can go ahead and pray and you can be saved right now." And I was like, no. I got to think about that. I don't want to do it right this second. And she's like, "Well, okay, that's fine." And so she gets out of the truck and I take off, and that's my quiet time, is back to my job. And so I'm just driving along there, and I'm just looking at everything. I'm not really having any thoughts about anything, and I look up and see the sunrise, and I don't know what it was. It just something came across me and said, "You need me more than you know." And it was at that moment I gave my life to God. And my life has not been the same since. And I feel like it's getting better every day.
I felt the same way. As soon as I was saved, I felt the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. Like the burden was completely lifted. I remembered that verse, and I wouldn't say it was immediately I started being obedient to God. I think I maybe struggled a little bit with that at first, when we did move to Nashville. But eventually, I started becoming more obedient to God, and Matt and I together started yoking ourselves to Jesus and allowing Him to lord over our lives, quitting jobs and going other ones just because we felt like He told us to, praying together, reading the Bible together, tithing. I could go on and on and on, but I probably shouldn't. But we started doing a lot of things, and just completely giving over to God and letting Him tell just whatever He told us to do, writing specific songs, that feels like, just letting God lead us, letting Jesus lead us, and not trying to lord over our own lives for the first time in 40 years.
And so I will tell you that doing that, like just giving our lives to Him, He has blessed us more than I can count. I mean, just this year, He has obviously given us our salvation. I'm going to heaven, y'all. And I mean, He's given us jobs that work around our church schedule. Just some really awesome stuff. And I could stand up here for hours and talk about all the things that I'm blessed. I will tell you guys, it's not been without struggle. We even during all of these good things that He's given us this year, we've still struggled with things. It's not always going to be easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And there's one thing that Heather and I wrote, and I want to read it word for word because I think it's that powerful. It's that even though none of us deserve His grace and mercy, He gives it to us freely. He only asks for your heart and belief in Him. But if you take it a step further and become obedient, and that means truly obedient to Him in every possible way, He will also give you peace and rest. And that's what Matthew 11:28 through 30 describes.
And I think he forgot to tell you one of the best things that He's done for us that I want to make sure I mention. In July of this year, Matt was super sick, got admitted into the hospital, had to have emergency surgery, and come to find out he was diagnosed with cancer for the second time in his life because he had childhood leukemia. Adam prayed over him, and we believed. And just this, nobody knows this other than, I think Ben and Natalie are the only two that know this. Just this Thursday, we went to the doctor, and the doctor said, he's healed. And he doesn't have to have chemo.
Yeah, so when we sing about we've seen cancer healed, I mean, living proof, bro. Living proof. All right, last but certainly not least, Cassandra Simmons. Come on up, Cassandra.
Evening, church. So I will not be telling a testimony. I'm an old soul. I've been in the faith a while. Excuse me. But hopefully, for those of you who have been walking with the Lord, hopefully what I have to say today is going to impact you in your walk. So some of you may know I'm not from here. And if you can't tell by my accent, I'm not from here. And one of the biggest culture shocks I had coming to America was realizing how much back home love to celebrate. Like, we celebrate back home, but you guys take it to another level. I mean, I remember walking into Michael's, the craft store, and I would just see all these decorations, and I'd feel really overwhelmed. And, it would be like, what happens is Easter, right? So you walk in Easter and you see all the Easter eggs and the pastel colors. And then Easter happens, and the next day you walk in and it's red, white, and blue. It's already Independence Day and we're all celebrating. And there's not a day that goes by that the craft stores and the party stores aren't ready for the next thing, right? And Americans love to celebrate. And, we all love to celebrate. But the great thing about seasons, the great things about festivals or holidays is they're regular, right? This time next year, fall will come. On the 1st of January, it will be New Year's Day. But most of the things we wait for in life don't have due dates. So some of us have been waiting for a really long time. Some of you are maybe waiting for children who have, gone away from the Lord to return. Some of you are waiting to get out of debt. Some of you are waiting for the Lord to bring about the promises that he gave to you. Some of you are waiting to know when you're going to get married. And if you're Rachel and Cole, you know because I got engaged yesterday. Woo! Shout out. But, we look forward to these things, and we're waiting for the day that comes where we can celebrate them. And I looked into waiting, and, it occurs in the Bible just over 100 times, the word wait. Now, when we think of the word wait, we think of it in terms of how you're all waiting for me to finish talking so that we can go and eat, right? But actually, in the Hebrew Bible, there are just over a dozen different words that are translated as wait, but they all have very different meanings. And I wish I could preach a sermon on it. But they're really vast and different. You have some that are wait as in, I'm going to just wait in silence. There's the wait that's, I'm going to bind myself to something as I wait. There's a wait that's a guard wait. I'm going to stand and protect something and wait. There's a hopeful wait. And then my personal favorite, there's a wait that literally means to writhe on the floor in pain. I'm sure we've all experienced these different types of waits at different times in our lives. But one thing I noticed in scripture was every time one of those wait words was tied to on the Lord, there was one common thread, no matter how different the words were. And that was that something positive always followed waiting on the Lord. Satan hates when I have a mic, man. He always closes my throat. And so why am I talking about this? Why does this matter? When I was thinking back on and praying about what was the one thing that I can say since I've come to Blueprint, which I was there almost from the exact beginning, I was asking the Lord, what is the one thing that you've really taught me by being at Blueprint? And it was this one thing. He taught me to wait on him. And now, the lesson I learned was not what you might think. It wasn't, well, if I wait on the Lord and I wait well, I'm going to get what I'm waiting for. The lesson was this. If your soul cannot find contentment in the journey, you will never reach the destination. If your soul cannot find contentment in the journey, you will never reach the destination. Why is that? It's because if you're not content, it means that there's something greater that you are waiting and longing for. But the greatest thing you're supposed to long for and wait for is something you already have, which is Christ. And so when we're not content in the waiting, what we're actually saying is that we're not content with the one we're waiting on. So I want us to learn to celebrate in the waiting seasons. And again, what does this have to do with Blueprint's birthday? We're here today to celebrate everything that God has done in Blueprint Church for 4 years. But I'm sure many of us sitting here have personal things that you're waiting for that aren't fulfilled. And I'm sure there's corporate things too that we as a church are waiting on that God has not yet done. Whether that's a building, whether that's more conferences and seminars, more people. There are things we're waiting on God to deliver that haven't come through yet. But I want to challenge us as a church today to learn to celebrate God in the waiting period. And how can you do that? How can you celebrate in the waiting? I'm going to give you the key, okay? And it's this. Listen carefully. It could change your life. There is nothing God could possibly give you greater than himself. And if you learn that, you will have all things. And you will learn to celebrate in every single season. So, happy birthday, Blueprint.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, I want to invite you to stand to your feet as we close today. We're going to close the right way. We're going to give glory to the Lord together. We're going to, again, just profess that he is our firm foundation, that he is the one worth waiting on, that we can be content in the wait, that we can celebrate the things he's done while we're also waiting upon the things he's doing. So this Jesus that we celebrate, do y'all agree that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever? Do y'all agree that he's still moving? Y'all agree he's still doing stuff? Well, I just encourage you today to give him glory, give him all honor and all praise. Let's worship the Lord together.